This old man was planning on committing suicide. He was wearing a beautiful suit, applying lotion. Then he puts the rope over his head. All done. He was about to kick the chair when right at that moment there was a noisy argument outside. He looked out to see what was happening. Someone was driving. He got angry, running out to scold that person. Driving isn't allowed here. It turned out to be his new neighbor. He had to help the young man. The driver was way too dumb. He's reversed his trailer into the mailbox again. Our old man had to do it for him. He drove the trailer onto the drive very quickly. He got out of the car in a cool way, just to go home to kill himself. He hooked the rope around his neck again, but the neighbors gathered in front of the windows once more. There was also a little girl run up to it and look in. He quickly pulled the rope back for fear of terrifying the little girl. The suicide plan failed again. This is a Swedish film that hit the web in 2016. The Man Named Ove. The movie healed countless lonely hearts. If you feel frustrated about life, I highly recommend that you go and see this movie. The protagonist is a grumpy man, Ove. A few months ago his beloved wife passed away. What's more, he was recently fired from the company. No hope left for life, so he wanted to die. He was a typical Nord. Their nature is cold and persistent. No matter whoever greeted him, he only said one sentence: "Stop making noise." The following day, Ove became more cautious. So he drew the curtains, put the rope around him again, but only God knew, Ove did not have interest in anything anymore. But the doorbell rang. He opened the door in anger. Oh, there was the kids. He could do nothing but contain his feelings. The parents of the two also turned up. They were his new neighbors. They brought him food and asked to borrow a ladder. Ove unwillingly lent it to them. At this time, the old lady from the opposite house came to ask him to fix her heater. It's like everyone was preventing him from committing suicide. Ove went mad.
Försvinn härifrån allihop! Gå hem med er! Försvinn!
Ove went home. Looking at his wife's photo, his heart broke. He made up his mind and hooked up the rope again. This time, he was finally successful. His whole life began to flash back like a slow-motion video. Starting from childhood, Ove lost his mother at a very young age. His father and him only had each other. His father was a reserved type. One day, Ove stood on the train tracks. A train was coming behind. His father shouted loudly,
Bakom dig!
warning Ove to get out of there. It was the first time his dad picked him up. He held him in his arms for a long time. Men usually keep their emotions deep inside. Years later, on another occasion when Ove grew up, he gave his transcript back to him. His dad was very happy, bringing his transcript to show off everywhere, until he was hit by a train. Life is a joke. After this, life continued to tease Ove. There was an officer. The guy burned Ove's house down because Ove did not move away. Ove had no place to go, and could only work part-time on the tracks. A train became his shelter. Unexpectedly, when life was in the abyss, he met the most beautiful thing in the world. A woman. She wore red high heels and red lipstick, crystal blue eyes. Her small, nice front teeth were easy to see. She had the smile of an angel. She bought his tickets for him. When he got off, she passes his bag to him while staring at him. Ove was born as dumb as a log, but he already knew he loved her. From then on, every day he started to sit on the train at that same time, in a row, for 3 continuous weeks. Finally, he met her again. Their very first date, Ove did not even know how to be funny. He either kept silent or talked about cars. The girl asked Ove, "Why don't you order food?" "I ate at home," said Ove. It turned out he was too poor to pay for his meal. He told her the whole truth. His house was burned down, he had nothing. Next, he thought about leaving. Suddenly, the girl kissed him. Ove understood. God sent an angel to him. Back to the present, his rope broke. Thwarted again. Ove decided to change his suicide method. He went to his neighbors to get some pipes, fixed a heater for her. Her man had a stroke. He was an old friend of Ove. Since there was no one around, Ove told him honest words. "The world is getting worse. People are getting worse. Fortunately, I am about to leave this world forever." Now the old woman came back and told him, "My husband can't move, but he knows everything." Ove was shocked, planning to leave, but an old friend pulled his pipes back. This is the holding action of a paralyzed person, full of consciousness. But Ove doesn't want to feel it. He returned home and began his 5th suicide attempt. 5th. Using the gas of a car, Ove whistled. It was going to work this time for sure. Since this was a private garage, no one would come to disturb. Ove closed his eyes again. But, after a while, somebody was knocking on the door of his garage. Ove burst out angrily. The neighbor's husband was injured. She asked for Ove to drive her and her 2 daughters to the hospital. How could Ove say no? Once again, suicide failed. On arrival at the hospital, she visited her husband by herself. She asked Ove to take care of the 2 kids. Ove could do nothing but accept. When the girls were bored, Ove told stories to the 2 girls. poking them to make them laugh. After going home, he meant to end his life quickly. Unexpectedly, the two girls thanked him for staying with them. They even ran to hug him, full of love. Today, Ove cannot die. Next time, Ove learned from experience. He changed the location of suicide to the train station. The train was coming, but unexpectedly there was a person who made a move faster than Ove. Ove was shocked again. Turning his head back, the surrounding people showed no care. Someone even took out his phone to film. He couldn't accept it. He went over there to save the man. The train was getting closer and closer. Ove stepped in the middle of the rails. It was time. But then, suddenly, he saw himself as a child. He suddenly remembered his father. Dad often told him to stay away from the train, but his father died by that means. In the end, at that moment, Ove raised his hand. The suicide plan failed again. That day, going back home, he saw a woman with a dog throw a stone at a cat. He scolded the woman. "Hurt it again and I will teach your dog a lesson." The dog started barking, also intimidated. The woman was chased away. Ove also intimidated the cat. But when he got to the house, he couldn't help it. He prepared some food, intending to take it to the cat, but he couldn't find it anywhere. Over the next few days, the cat ran to hide at his door again. Ove and the neighbor brought him into the house, because the neighbor's daughter was allergic to cats, so only Ove could adopt it. As a result, not only could he not die yet, but there was also a cat. He went to his wife's grave. He said that.
Ja, hon såg ut så här från början, så du ska inte tro att det är jag som har gjort.
But in fact, every day he held the cat back and forth, cooked him good food. One day he saw his neighbor struggling to learn to drive, so he offered to teach her instead. On the street, someone honked at her like crazy, making her cry. Ove jumped out of the car and gave the driver a lecture. Later she had to go out, so she asked Ove to take care of the two girls. Ove went back and forth indoors. Hearing the little girls say their dad couldn't install the dishwasher, he did it for the family without saying a word. At night, the cat also slept very close to him. There were more of these binding relationships. Ove seemed to have more hope, until one day, the neighbor advised him, "You can't just live like this." Ove was not angry yet. Encountering the man in a white shirt always provoked him. This guy was an official. Officials always take advantage of public interest for their own interests, treating everyone badly. He said that Ove was more cruel. "You were a troublesome bastard before. When your wife died, you immediately became a madman." Everyone saw only one side of Ove's pain. Ove collapsed. He stormed back in his house, locked himself in there. He wanted to commit suicide again. The 7th try, Ove decided to use a shotgun. He took out the gun. The cat was looking at him. All he could do was turn up the radio, not to frighten the cat. He also covered his room with a transparent film, so the cat can't come in and get blood on him. He pointed the gun at his chin, then aimed again at the head. Ove became angry. Holding the gun, he stormed out. Outside was his wife's former student. He begged Ove to let his friends stay in his house. His family kicked him out. Ove scowled angrily, but then he felt sorry, so he agreed. The next day, that boy cooked breakfast for him, also prepared food for the cat. This was the first time in ages Ove had breakfast with others. It was half a year later. He wanted to go around. The boy also wanted to join him. Not just him. The cat also followed the two of them. On the way, another boy joined them. Ove's team gradually grew more. Not long after, Ove received words from the official. His old friend was currently having a stroke. He was forced to go to the nursing home. Some treatment institutes in Europe would steal a patient's money. Ove went mad. Though there was a huge conflict between them, he could not let his friend be bullied. He decided to help. He started calling everywhere, wrote letters of all kinds, but nothing worked. Ove felt powerless. He almost gave up. At this point, the neighbor told him, "Why don't you seek help? No one can handle it all alone. It is like, you can't bear the pain of my wife's passing alone." Listening to this, Ove bowed. For the first time, he recounted painful memories in his heart. There was a year, to celebrate his wife's pregnancy, they decided to have a trip together. Very fun though it was, on the way home they had an accident. He saved his wife, but not the baby. His wife was paralyzed from the waist down, but his wife was very resilient. She began to try to study, hoping to become a teacher. At that time, schools did not accept people with disabilities. Ove went mad. He denounced them everywhere, always fighting for injustice until he could settle things on his own. His wife successfully became a teacher. She had to take a class of bad students, but his wife was a really good teacher. She brought up a lot of teenagers with many different issues, making them good people. She was an angel with paralyzed legs, who incredibly transferred a power to heal many people. After that, she became sick and died. Ove became a loner. Now he lived in his memories of her. He decided to be like a young man, constantly trying. The following day, staff of the nursing home arrived. As they thought everything was in their control, there was a female reporter coming out of the house. Ove asked her to do so. She said to the others, "I have evidence of your embezzlement." The man in the white shirt finally got scared. This time, Ove won. Not by himself, but with the help from friends. He built up relationships with people around him. He no longer wanted to kill himself. Not long after, the neighbor's fourth child was born. Ove held the child like a gentle grandfather. His pity was that he had no children, but now every child could be his grandbaby. This was the great love of Ove. One day, the neighbor found out. Ove didn't go to the front of the house to clear the snow. They quickly ran to his house. Indeed, they found him peacefully in his bed. Finally, Ove achieved his will and left this life, but in a very natural way. He used to be a lonely, monstrous old man. But the day of the funeral, the church was filled with people who came to accompany him in the last hour, in the later part of Ove's life. He did not live for himself, but for others. But those attachments gave him joy. Thanks to them also, he found new meaningful connections in life, a reason for living.